Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. Today we are going to talk about the Novation X-Station. This jack-of-all-trades was released in a time that was very different from now, at least for knob-twiddling musicians. While today's synth enthusiasts want as many tools as possible to perform a single task, the music tech landscape of the year 2004 was all about having a streamlined setup heavily based on the newly emerged and all-dominating DAW. Still, using just a computer keyboard and mouse was completely out of discussion, and hardware controllers for virtual instruments were the shizzle. Novation upped their game and not only threw in a full-fledged audio and MIDI interface. There seemed to be enough juice left in the built-in DSPs to run a virtual analog synth based on the KS range. It never ceases to amaze me what manufacturers of electronic musical instruments were able to achieve with the comparably basic processing power available in the days of yore. But I always get skeptical when the feature set of a product like the X-Station seems too good to be true. Let's take a closer look. At the first glance, the Novation X-Station is ticking all the boxes. Seriously. Rugged plastic enclosure, plenty of hands-on controls, a minimalist but adequate display, and the keypad with AFTERTOUCH is more than okay, especially considering the abomination they put into the SIO synth. The pitch mod joystick and 2003 Acer Travel-Mate touchpad are not my two favorite UI elements, and I will totally neglect them in this episode. Novation really did their homework with the overall all-in-one concept. The simple 2-in, 2-out USB 1.1 audio interface offers a hardware FX unit for both monitoring and recording that can be applied to the synth section as well. The latest drivers for this interface were released in 2014 and I couldn't get them to work even on my old 2012 MacBook Pro. USB MIDI worked great without drivers on both Mac and PC. Speaking of MIDI, there are numerous templates for software classics like Ableton Live 2, NIB4 and Steinberg Groove Agent, but the X-Station can be used as a generic controller as well. Okay, generic is an understatement. The unit is capable of sending MIDI commands many other controllers can't, including SysX. Super nice. The synth section itself is a mono-timbral 8-voice virtual analog with all the bells and whistles, standard waveforms, PWM, noise, a few sample waves, unison, sync and ring modulation. Novation went all in with the modulation possibilities, and the 3 envelopes and LFOs can be conveniently routed to almost every parameter. They even threw in some basic FM functionality. The abundance of physical controls makes it easy to manage this very deep sound generator, and I appreciate having faders for tweaking the envelopes. This monstrous naughty sound design toolbox is, of course, ideal for bright pads, goofy basses, and leads that cut through the mix. The arpeggiator leaves little to be desired. There are some limitations though. You can't use the MIDI controller section and sound generator at the same time. What is more, the buttons don't always return to their original position. X-Stations can be powered with a wall wart, batteries and USB. It's not always easy to find one on the used market and prices are kind of random. The Novation X-Station promised total early 21st century home studio salvation. Is there anything it can do for us, the people of the future? You have already heard the X-Station in our little intro tune. To be honest, I'm not exactly proud of that. The filter section is often the weak spot of 0 years VAs. It's time for a little cut-off rodeo. Okay, the X-Station doesn't have the same 3D-ness and raw character you would expect from its analog counterparts, but it's super tweakable and I especially enjoyed the noisy patches. Not being able to use the synth and controller section simultaneously is a real bummer. In order to showcase both at the same time, I recorded some loops with a synth and then performed them using the physical controls in this meta jam. That worked really well. The synth engine is versatile and the faders are great. Admittedly, there's some flimsiness to the whole interface, but no deal breaker for me. It is not always easy to hide the digital nature of the X-Station, but just like Brian Eno said, emphasize the flaws. Let's celebrate its virtuality in this bring back the robot dance, melancholic, cyber-symphonic electro-dystopia. When it comes to synthesizers, the 0 years were a strange decade. In a crude simplification, one could say that the 70s had the Minimoog, the 80s the DX7 and the 90s introduced the first virtual analogs, mixed them with a rack of ramplers and added a D50 or M1 preset cherry on top. The noughties had all this in virtual form. Everything was suddenly available to everybody, everywhere and cheap. I don't think there is any instrument that describes this era better than the X-Station. If you wanted to start producing music, all you needed was the computer you already had and one of these keyboards. And you could still make some noise when your PC was haunted by the blue screen of death. Today, entirely different story. Affordable MIDI controllers and audio interfaces have become household staples. There's a trend away from working in the computer, and I assume it's only a matter of weeks until we will see a buy 2 analog synth, get one for free Behringer special. The X-Station is a versatile synth with a proper set of controls. It sounds fine and can still be integrated in many setups nicely. Maybe it's the spirit of the 20s that this is nothing special. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like, subscribe, become a patron and leave a comment what other kind of gear you would like to see and hear on the show.